Welcome back. Isn't it mind-boggling how the Democrats, the ones constantly calling conservatives racists, are the ones that always make everything in this country about race? Let's think about it. You fill out a job application, a college application. What race are you? If the Democrats were truly all about equality, why do they push so hard for a question about someone's race to remain on these applications? If we're all just equal, it should just be equal. On Monday, the Supreme Court heard arguments in two potential landmark cases over how colleges and universities look at race when it comes to admissions decisions. Students for fair admissions claim that policies at Harvard University and University of North Carolina discriminate against applicants who are not from a certain minority group based on their race. The group in particular claimed that Asian Americans suffer from the practices at both schools and that white applicants are also harmed by policies at these colleges. We all know that affirmative action isn't the only race game that Democrats have been playing for a while. How about critical race theory? Yeah, that one too. The left loves to push this CRT garbage onto our kids. Check out these headlines. One of them saying, why critical race theory is essential to an honest education in America? Really? A lot of people over the last couple of years have spoke out against CRT. One of them being our friend Dr. Carol Swain. Recently she said, quote, critical race theory's purpose is to divide the world into white oppressors and non-white victims. Critical race theory assumes that racism is permanent and affects every aspect of society, including political, economic, social, and religious institutions. The theory further advances the belief that being born with white skin in and of itself gives unearned privileges. I agree with her 100%. So now, let's continue our conversation with the founder of Every Black Life Matters, Kevin McGary. In this segment, Kevin really hits home how corrupt BLM actually is and how conservatives should address the CRT teachings that are taking place in our children's classroom. Also, his new book, Woked Up. Welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with this amazing individual, Kevin McGary, the founder of Every Black Life Matters.
Exactly.
Kevin, before we went to break, we
Yes.
were discussing the differences between your organization and BLM. We didn't really get into the deep meat of it, if you will.
Yeah.
But when you were at my church earlier this week, I recall you discussing when you started looking into who was behind BLM, the founders, kind of investigating, if you will, where the cash is going. I really like how you laid it out for people.
Yeah.
Can you again discuss for our viewers the point you were trying to make about what they've been doing, how they use the black community,
Yes.
and what your organization actually does?
Yeah. So what's really interesting is BLM apparently has accumulated over $100 million. Okay. I think their 990 say something like 90 to 100 million. Okay. The issues that they've had is that the overwhelming majority of that money were invested in other communities that are certainly antithetical to some of the black churches that were going out rallying with them. They've been actually giving large grants to most transgender organizations around the world. Significant, according to, and again, I'm referring to Candace Owens' research that she did. But basically, she uncovered that a lot of these organizations, mostly trans, and then several LGBTQIA, have been receiving these funds. And so it's just kind of interesting because none of those funds, even though they encouraged black churches and clergy to come out and march with us,
Oh, yeah.
none of it went back into those communities or to those churches. And we had a huge need. Remember, this was a time when a lot of, especially single parent mothers, were forced to stay home because their children were home. They would have loved to have had some childcare resources or other ways that they could have continued to, make money for their families. They had to really rely on the system and kind of support them during this time, right? So it was really unfortunate that we had such a large amount of money that really didn't go back into the communities at all, from what we can see.
And the communities got destroyed by BLM Antifa riots.
Yeah, right. And the people that were killed in those communities because of the riot. I mean,
how about
none
the
of it
mansions and the massive salaries?
Mansions.
The president of BLM giving her brother $1 million contract to be her head of security.
Head of security. Apparently, it's over. I think it's $890,000. It was to be her head of security. Yeah. There's about 6 mansions I think that they've multi-million-dollar mansions around the world. So they have at least 1 or 2 in Canada. They have 4 or 5 here. I mean, it's just unbelievable. Now they're going to have to suffer the consequences for their malfeasance and fraud if there is any. There's a number of states that have investigations going on right now with BLM. Everything they did will be uncovered, and they'll have to suffer whatever
Why do
consequences.
you think the Democrat Party is so big on promoting and uplifting BLM, the organization?
Well, I think that the party itself is looking for any organization that will create and embrace chaos in the streets. I really do think so, and because I think that there's a reason why, right? We already had Biden telling the UN, and it was in his first year, that look, the United States is racist and we can fall under UN protocols, right? Then we have him embracing parts of the World Economic Foundation, Klaus Schwab and that, which really wants to drive us to the Great Reset. The more chaos they have in our streets, the closer we are, right, to participating in a global Great Reset. Because all he has to do is say, look, I have to throw up my hands. We got chaos in the streets here in America. UN, World Economic Forum, Council of Foreign Relations, please come in here and help me to manage this because the United States is a tragedy right now.
Yeah, they do seem to love chaos.
Yeah.
And they seem to love stirring up the race war
that
I firmly believe, and I've said it on the program numerous times, is a farce.
Well,
I don't think there is a race war. I think Democrats have concocted this, just like their CRT, just like this cancel culture woke mob. And I know you discuss it in your book, Woked Up.
Woked Up.
Talk about that more, the whole CRT and the race divide that the Democrat Party has done between Americans.
Let's talk about CRT, okay?
Sure.
So critical race theory is one of those things that a lot of our government wants critical race theory to be taught in all the schools, right? They fully embrace CRT workshops being taught in various divisions of government, or parts of that mindset to be infused in training manuals and all of that throughout the government and that. So critical race theory, what people have to understand, is a racist theory. And so basically what it means is, based on your immutable characteristics that you're born with, it had nothing to do with God, just gave you whatever paint job he gave you. You're born with that, and therefore you're guilty because you happen to be born with not quite the melanin I have. And so therefore you're guilty, you're racist, you are complicit with what happened 200 or so years ago. Now, it's so preposterous that you had people, organizations like Google that told their employees, look, a 3-month-old baby can actually be racist. You had Gerber that said, look, babies in the womb could be racist. The insanity is just over the top, right? And so essentially what they're saying is, look, just based on immutable characteristics, you can be racist, or you are racist. They don't even say can be, they say you are. And so here's the problem with that. That is the perfect classic definition of racism. But because you had nothing to do with your immutable characteristic of your skin color, and yet you're being castigated, blamed, shamed for being that skin color. And so that's exactly what racism is, right? And so here's the problem. We have so many people that are conservatives that get accosted with this accusation of systemic racism. Like America is systemically racist, and we always launch back and we say no, and we say there is no such thing as systemic racism. I want us to change our conversation about that. There is systemic racism, and the systemic racism is critical race theory. Now the reason why I say that is because CRT in and of itself preaches and practices an ideology that is self-perpetuating within the system. So that means all the educators, that means all of the people who embrace it, they continue to perpetuate the ideology within the system. That's what systemic, classic definition, means. Up, down, in, out, through and through. Everybody's practicing from the same frame. And that is what CRT adherents are. And so CRT, if they say, okay, if we should be saying, look, I'll give you a definition of systemic racism. It is critical race theory. That theory that you so want to embrace, that is
it. Put it right back on them.
Yeah, put it right back on them.
How about reparations? That's part of CRT. When they bring up CRT, then they say, I, as a 48-year-old white man, should be paying them back something that possibly an ancestor did 200 and some years ago that I had nothing to do with. What's your take on reparations?
That is another conversation that, conservatives have a tendency to run away from. Oh, well, there's no such thing as reparations and I want us to stay there with them. To say, look, okay, let's have that conversation. Let's put it on the table. Let's look at reparations. Okay, reparations are basically, those that have caused harms need to be able to provide some level of restitution to those who they've harmed. So with that mind frame, with that concept, let's take a look at that with our liberally ideological friends that are really pushing for reparation. We say, look, reparations then should be looked at from the standpoint that there was a particular faction of people in the South in the 1800s that really caused the harms on us blacks. There were. That was that particular faction. And if they say, no, it was all white people. No. We actually literally had a civil war. That means there were people in the North that did not share that point of view, and they fought to set people like me free. So how could you say it's all white people are guilty? But no, that's just matter of factly, it's false, right? So here's the deal. There was a particular faction in the South. Now, that particular faction just happens to be still around today. So, and they just happen to have over $1 billion or maybe $2 billion in their coffers. So, you know, if you really want to do the reparations, I'm with you. Let's both go down, file a lawsuit against that particular faction, which right now is a big party. And we say, look, you owe us blacks money because you are the ones who enslaved us and horribly treated us for so long.
You mean the Southern Democrats that started the KKK?
Exactly.
No, they couldn't be responsible for all that.
Exactly.
So if you want to talk reparations, call the DNC.
Exactly.
You discussed the origins, though, of this whole debate that the left seems to be fixated on, especially leading into the midterms right now, to paint every conservative and Republican as a white supremacist.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
Where did this whole white supremacy thing come from? Because they claim it's from Republicans, conservatives, and old school white Christians.
Right.
That's not where white supremacy came from. And when
Not
you
at
started mentioning some of these names in church the other day, light bulbs went off to me, and I'm going, oh my gosh, we've heard some of the biggest names in the Democrat Party mention these names before, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama.
Yep.
So I want to get to that, but we're going to take one more quick break, and when we come back,
You bet.
wait till Kevin spins this web for you and connects the dots.
Absolutely.
Stick around. We're back in 2 minutes.